David led his daughters through the overgrown path to a long-abandoned lab. The air felt heavy, and shadows danced around them, whispering secrets of the past. The lab was silent except for their footsteps. Dust swirled in the flashlight beams, and every shadow seemed alive, hiding something unseen. And then, a creature chained in the shadows. Its eyes glowed faintly, and Emma whispered, "That one." David froze, unable to breathe. The alien shifted in its chains. Suddenly, alarms blared and red lights flashed. Fear gripped David. This was no ordinary discovery. The sun was already low when David, a tall man with tired eyes, led his two daughters, Emma and Lily, through the overgrown path that skirted the city's abandoned outskirts. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a faint metallic scent that made Emma wrinkle her nose. "Dad, are we really going inside this place?" she asked, her voice tinged with both fear and excitement. Lily, always the braver one, grabbed her sister's hand. "Come on, Emma. This is going to be amazing. Imagine what's inside." David hesitated for a moment, looking at the crumbling concrete building ahead. Its windows were shattered, and the heavy metal doors looked like they hadn't opened in decades. His heart pounded, but curiosity, and perhaps a lingering sense of responsibility, pushed him forward. Inside, the air was cold and smelled of dust and rust. The flashlight in David's hand flickered as it swept across broken machinery, scattered papers, and long-abandoned chairs. Shadows danced along the walls, creating shapes that made the girls giggle nervously. "It's like a real-life science lab," Lily whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. David tried to keep his focus on the floor and the walls, but he couldn't shake a feeling of being watched. Every creak of the building made his stomach twist. They moved deeper into the lab until they reached a massive steel door, unlike the others. It was taller, reinforced, and had strange symbols etched across its surface. David ran his hand over the cold metal, shivering at its weight. "I think, this is it," he said quietly. Emma's curiosity won over her caution, and she pressed her small hand against the door. Suddenly, a faint humming sound vibrated through the air. It was low, almost like a heartbeat. Both girls froze. "Dad, do you hear that?" Emma whispered. David nodded, feeling the hairs on his neck stand up. The door groaned as it slowly opened, revealing a dark chamber that stretched farther than the flashlight could reach. The air inside was thick, and the faint glow of something in the distance caught the girls' eyes. Lily pointed first. "Dad, look," she said, her voice barely a whisper. In the middle of the chamber, chained to the floor and walls, was a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. Its skin shimmered faintly in shades of green and silver, and its large eyes seemed to glow in the darkness. Even from a distance, it was clear this was no ordinary animal. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. "That one," she whispered. Lily nodded, almost in awe. "Yes, that's the one." David felt his chest tighten. His legs froze, and for a long moment, he couldn't move or speak. There was something familiar about the creature, something buried deep in his memory, but he couldn't place it. His mind raced, trying to remember, where had he seen those eyes before? A sudden metallic clang echoed through the chamber, making him jump. The creature shifted slightly, its chains rattling as if testing its strength. Its glowing eyes were fixed on them, intelligent and alert. David swallowed hard. "Girls, stay back," he said, his voice shaking. The girls, however, were entranced. They stepped closer, their faces a mixture of fear and fascination. "Dad, it's like, we've seen it before," Emma said, her voice trembling. "In a dream, maybe," Lily added, "or, in a story we read." David shook his head quickly, trying to clear the fog of memory, but the feeling of recognition wouldn't leave him. The alien's eyes followed their movements, and faint whispers seemed to echo in the walls around them. The air felt charged, as if something unseen was watching and waiting for the right moment to strike. Suddenly, the lights above flickered violently, casting long, jagged shadows across the room. The humming grew louder, more insistent, and a low, growling sound vibrated through the floor. The chains rattled again, and the alien's body tensed, muscles coiling under the metal restraints. David's heart raced. He realized that whatever this creature was, it was powerful, far beyond what they could handle. He stepped forward, trying to calm his daughters and himself, but every step made the air feel heavier, the shadows deeper. Then, without warning, the lab's security alarms blared to life, echoing through the abandoned halls with a deafening wail. Red lights bathed the chamber in a harsh glow, and the alien's chain sparked as it thrashed against its restraints. Emma and Lily screamed, instinctively clinging to their father. David grabbed their hands tightly, his mind spinning. The alien's glowing eyes were now fully locked on them, and for the first time, it let out a sound that was almost human, a sharp, guttural cry that made his blood run cold. David's mind raced. He knew one thing for certain, this was only the beginning. Whatever that creature was, whatever secret the lab held, it was awake now, and it knew they were there. The daughters kept pointing at it, whispering, that one, over and over, as if pleading with him to understand something he could not yet remember. And in that moment, David froze completely, realizing that his past, and the truth about the alien, was catching up with him faster than he could run. The chamber seemed endless, dark, and alive. Shadows moved with a life of their own, the air thickened, and the creature's glowing eyes followed them relentlessly. The alarm's wail pierced every corner, and David knew that whatever happened next would change everything. He swallowed hard, holding his daughters close, as the alien strained against its chains, a silent promise of danger and mystery hanging in the air. And just like that, the first chapter of their terrifying adventure had begun. David's hands trembled as he held Emma and Lily close, the deafening alarm of the lab echoing like a warning through the dark chamber. The alien's glowing eyes seemed to bore into his very soul, and a cold realization gripped him, this wasn't just a random creature. He had seen it before, long ago, though the memory remained buried beneath layers of fear and guilt. He swallowed hard, trying to steady his racing heart. "Girls, stay behind me," he whispered, though the words felt weak against the tension that hung thick in the air. Emma and Lily clung to him tightly, their wide eyes fixed on the chained alien. The creature shifted again, the metal chains screeching under its movements, and David felt a shiver crawl down his spine. Its eyes, so intelligent, so human-like in their focus, reminded him of someone, or something, from a time he wished he could forget. As they edged cautiously along the chamber, David's mind flickered back years, to a time when he had been a young scientist, eager and reckless, drawn to the promise of discovery without fully understanding the cost. He had been part of a secret experiment, one that promised to unlock the boundaries between human and alien intelligence. He had worked with a team in hidden facilities, manipulating life forms, and studying their minds, but he had never imagined it would lead to this. The alien before him, restrained but alive, was a remnant of that dark past. And now, decades later, it had found a connection to him, through his daughters. Emma stepped closer, pointing at a faint mark on the alien's arm-like limb. "Dad, look! It has something like your tattoo." David froze, his mind snapping back to the present. He knew that tattoo had once marked members of the experiment, a symbol that bound them to a dangerous secret. He had hidden it for years, hoping no one would ever connect the past to him. Now, with his daughters pointing at the alien, the truth threatened to unravel. That's not possible," he whispered, more to himself than to the girls. But the alien's gaze did not waver. It tilted its head, as if recognizing not just David but the children standing beside him. A wave of dread hit him, the creature remembered, understood, and had been waiting. Suddenly, a low hum filled the chamber, stronger this time, vibrating through their bones. The alien let out a deep growl, and the chains rattled violently. Red light from the alarm bathed the room, highlighting the alien's muscular frame and the faint glow beneath its skin. Its movements were precise, controlled, and intelligent, not the thrashing of a mindless beast. Emma and Lily whispered to each other in hushed tones, their curiosity fighting fear. "It's like it's trying to speak," to us," Lily said. The alien's eyes shifted toward them, and David felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever it wanted, it was trying to communicate, and they were the bridge. David took a hesitant step closer, trying to calm both the alien and his daughters. "Stay calm, okay," he murmured, though his own words rang hollow. The alien responded with a sharp hiss, its glowing eyes narrowing. Then, a sound, strange, almost like speech, slipped from its mouth. A guttural voice, distorted and eerie, yet unmistakably directed at him, "You brought them." David's blood ran cold. How could it know? How could it recognize his daughters as if he had purposefully led them here? He wanted to deny it, to run, but the reality was undeniable. The past had returned, demanding reckoning. The room around them seemed to shrink, the walls closing in with shadows that moved independently, as if alive. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, triggered by the alien's presence, though David had never seen them before. He realized that the lab itself was reacting, almost in fear, or perhaps in obedience, to the creature. Emma whispered, "Dad. I think it remembers us from before. Like, in our dreams." David felt a pang of disbelief and terror. Dreams? Could it be that their subconscious memories, or perhaps some connection he had never understood, tied his daughters to this being? Then, a sudden clattering behind them made all three jump. Another chamber door had opened, revealing a smaller alien, its body wriggling frantically in a cage. Its shrieks pierced the alarm's wail, adding a new layer of chaos to the already tense scene. The larger chained alien turned, letting out a roar that shook the floor. Its attention was now divided, its intelligence calculating. David realized something horrifying: the alien was not acting alone. The smaller creature's presence suggested there were more of them, creatures like this, connected, aware, and possibly waiting for a signal only the father could unknowingly give. David's mind raced. He had to protect his daughters, but he also had to confront the past he had long buried. The alien's eyes held a cruel intelligence, not just of instinct but memory, memory of David, memory of the experiments, and perhaps, memory of betrayal. Every second felt stretched, the alarm's shrill sound mingling with the alien's growls and the girl's whispered fears. He realized that stepping forward without caution could mean death, not just for him but for Emma and Lily. Yet, hiding or running might trigger something worse. As the red lights flickered and the chains rattled, David finally spoke, his voice firm despite the terror. I need to remember. I need to know what it wants. And you too, stay close to me." The daughters nodded, trembling but trusting him. The alien tilted its head again, its glowing eyes unwavering. The air grew heavier, almost electric, and David felt a shiver that was more than fear, it was a warning. The past was alive in this room, wrapped in chains and glowing eyes, and it had a message that only he could decipher. And then, with a sudden, bone-chilling movement, the larger alien leaned closer to the smaller one, its chains straining. The smaller alien shrieked again, but the sound was different now, almost like recognition, almost like a plea. David realized that what he had thought was a creature to fear might also be a creature seeking help. And in that terrifying, tense moment, he understood the truth: this was bigger than him, bigger than the girls, and whatever came next, there was no turning back. The lab itself seemed to breathe around them, alive with secrets, and David knew that the next choice he made would define not only their survival but the fate of something far older and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. David's mind raced as the echoes of the alarm bounced through the massive chamber. The chained alien's glowing eyes followed every move, intelligent and calculating, while the smaller creature shrieked and thrashed in its cage. He could feel the weight of the past pressing on him, the memory of his experiments clawing back to the present. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but the girls, Emma and Lily, were too close, their fingers clutching his jacket, their eyes wide with terror and curiosity. He knew he couldn't leave them behind. Whatever this was, whatever the aliens wanted, he had to find a way to survive, and fast. The chains on the larger alien rattled again as it leaned forward, its glowing eyes fixed on the smaller one, as though silently communicating. David noticed that the alien seemed aware of the alarms, the lights, and even the walls, as if it could sense the layout of the entire lab. He took a careful step back, dragging his daughters with him, and noticed a faint panel partially hidden behind one of the control consoles. Sweat ran down his face. The panel was old and dusty, but it had buttons, levers, and symbols, some familiar from his past. This might be their only chance to manipulate the chains or control the alien remotely. Emma tugged at his sleeve, pointing at the chain sparking as the larger alien's muscles strained. "Dad, it's going to break free," she whispered, her voice trembling. David swallowed hard, trying to steady his shaking hands. He could feel the heat from the alien's body, the raw power coiled in its limbs. The alarms grew louder, their red lights flickering faster, casting terrifying shadows across the room. David realized with a cold shiver that if the alien broke free, there would be no stopping it. But there was also a strange hesitation in the creature, almost as if it understood that the girls were not threats. He crouched by the control panel, brushing off decades of dust. His fingers hovered over buttons, unsure which one would help and which might trigger disaster. I have to try," he muttered to himself. Lily leaned close, peering at the alien's glowing eyes. "Dad, maybe it wants to help us," she said softly. David wanted to believe her, but the fear was stronger than hope. He could still see the way the alien's chains groaned and the way its muscles coiled, ready to spring. Every second felt stretched, like the air itself was holding its breath. Then, a sudden surge of movement jolted David. The smaller alien, shrieking, slammed its cage against the floor, and the larger alien roared, a sound that shook the walls. Sparks flew from the chains, and one of the support beams creaked ominously. David realized the chain restraining the larger alien was weakening. The creature's strength was far beyond anything he had anticipated. Heart pounding, he slammed his palm on a lever, trying to release a secondary safety lock he remembered from the old experiments. The chains rattled violently, and the alien's eyes flashed brighter, as if in recognition. Emma gasped, and Lily clutched David's arm. "Dad, be careful!" Emma cried, her voice breaking through the roar of alarms. The larger alien's body shifted closer to the control panel, its massive head tilting toward David, eyes glowing with curiosity and warning. And then, almost miraculously, the creature paused, as if testing his intentions. David realized this was not just a fight for survival, it was a test of trust. The alien could sense whether he intended harm or cooperation. David's mind raced. He had only moments to act before the alarms attracted military security, or before the alien's restraint failed completely. He made a decision. With trembling fingers, he pressed the sequence he remembered from years ago, activating a control that partially loosened the chains. Sparks flew, the metal groaned, but the alien did not attack. Instead, it shifted back slightly, coiling like a predator ready to spring, yet restrained by the new, careful tension in the chains. David exhaled, relief and fear warring inside him. Suddenly, the alien spoke, its voice distorted but chillingly clear. "They are yours." David froze. The words were directed at his daughters. The realization hit him like ice water, the alien knew them. It understood their connection, their bond, and perhaps, their vulnerability. Emma and Lily's wide eyes mirrored his fear, yet there was also a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, the alien could be reasoned with, guided, or even persuaded to help them escape. The alarm's red lights flickered, and the distant sound of military drones approaching vibrated through the walls. David knew they didn't have much time. He took a deep breath and whispered to his daughters, "Stay close. Whatever happens, don't let go of me." The larger alien let out a low rumble, a sound almost like a growl and a warning combined, as if acknowledging the plan forming in David's mind. He understood now, the alien was not mindless. It was intelligent, aware, and perhaps willing to cooperate if treated carefully. Every second stretched into eternity as David edged toward the exit path he had identified earlier. The alien's chains rattled behind him, sparks flying, while the smaller creature shrieked, pounding its cage. The air was thick with tension, electricity, and danger. He could feel the pulse of the lab itself, alive with secrets and memories, pushing them forward and warning them of what would happen if they made a single wrong move. David's heart pounded as he led his daughters, eyes darting between the alien and the glowing exit, knowing that this escape would require not just courage but clever thinking, intuition, and perhaps the trust of a being far older and far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. And as the chamber's shadows twisted and the chains rattled one last time, David realized that nothing about this night, nothing about this lab, would ever be the same again. The past had awakened, the aliens were aware, and the choice he made next would determine not just their survival, but the fate of something far beyond the walls of this abandoned facility. The escape had begun, but whether they would survive it remained a question that hung like a knife above their heads. David's heart pounded as he led Emma and Lily through the flickering corridors of the lab. The larger alien moved behind them, its chains loosened but still restraining it, while the smaller one shrieked intermittently, its eyes filled with panic. Every step echoed, bouncing off the cold, metal walls, and David felt the weight of the past pressing down harder than ever. He knew that soon the military would arrive, armed and ready, and that whatever happened next would determine not only their survival but also the fate of the creatures he had once helped create. His daughters clung to him tightly, their trust and fear mixing in a way that made his chest ache. "Dad, what is it? Why does it know us?" Emma whispered, her voice trembling. David swallowed hard, the memories he had buried for years pressing painfully against the surface of his mind. He stopped for a moment, turning to face them, the alien's glowing eyes following his every move. I didn't want you to ever know," he began, his voice shaking. "This creature, it's not just an alien. It's part of a secret experiment I helped run years ago. Something I thought I could control, but I was wrong." The girl's eyes widened, their hands gripping his arms tighter. "I thought we were just learning, discovering, but it became something dangerous. Something alive, aware, and now, it's tied to us in ways I can't explain yet." The larger alien let out a low rumble, tilting its head as if it understood every word. Its chains rattled softly as it followed them, its eyes glowing like distant stars. David realized something astonishing: the creature was not purely dangerous. It had intelligence, emotions, and perhaps even a sense of morality, or at least curiosity. It's not trying to hurt us," David whispered, more to himself than anyone else. It wants something, it wants answers." The daughters looked at each other, fear slowly giving way to fascination. Lily stepped slightly forward. Maybe it can help us, Dad. Maybe it wants to be free too." Before David could respond, the distant sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the hall. Military drones had arrived, their lights cutting through the darkness, and automated guns powered up with a mechanical whir. Red beams swept the corridors, scanning for movement. David's heart froze. "We have to move, now," he hissed, grabbing his daughter's hands. The alien behind them coiled its body, ready to act, its eyes glowing brighter as it seemed to anticipate every threat. David realized that for them to survive, they would need to trust it, guide it, and act as one, a fragile alliance between human and alien. The first drones appeared at the corridor's entrance, their metal bodies glinting under the red warning lights. David ducked behind a support pillar, his daughters pressed against him. The alien let out a sound, low and warning, and suddenly surged forward, smashing into the drones with calculated force. Sparks flew as metal twisted and wires sparked, the mechanical enemies failing against the raw power of the creature. David felt a surge of hope mixed with terror. This was no longer a simple escape. It was a battle of wits, trust, and survival. Amid the chaos, David led his daughters down a side passage he remembered from the old lab schematics. "Follow me, don't stop," he shouted. The alien moved behind them, careful not to crush them, while the smaller creature's shrieks echoed, adding to the cacophony. The air was thick with smoke, dust, and tension, each step more dangerous than the last. David's mind raced, thinking of the years he had spent hiding the truth. Now, there was no hiding. The alien had memories, it had awareness, and somehow, it understood his daughters. He realized that the bond between them could be the key to survival, but it also meant that if anything went wrong, the cost would be unimaginable. Finally, they reached the outer chamber, a large room with broken windows and a faint glow of moonlight streaming in. David paused, catching his breath, and turned to the alien. "We need to trust each other," he whispered. The creature tilted its head and let out a soft rumble, a sound that almost resembled acknowledgement. Emma and Lily stepped forward cautiously, holding out their hands, and the alien's massive head lowered, as if studying them, assessing them. David's chest tightened. He realized that for the first time, the alien was not just a creature to fear, it was a being capable of choice. The distant sound of military reinforcements grew louder, and David knew they had little time. He made a decision that would change everything. "We leave together," he said firmly. The alien's chains rattled one last time, then fell completely loose, clattering to the floor. Its eyes glowed fiercely, but there was no aggression, only awareness. The three of them, human and alien, moved toward the broken windows, leaping down to the ground below. The smaller alien followed, careful not to harm them. David's heart pounded as they ran, the alarms fading behind them, replaced by the sound of their own rapid breaths. Once outside, under the moonlit sky, David looked at his daughters. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice hoarse. They nodded, wide-eyed and shaken, but alive. The larger alien crouched nearby, its glowing eyes fixed on them, not as a predator, but as a guardian of sorts. Emma whispered, "Dad, what now?" David swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the past and the uncertain future. "Now, we survive. And maybe, we learn the truth together." The alien made a low rumble, almost like agreement, and the three of them, human and alien, walked into the darkness of the night, united by fear, curiosity, and an unspoken bond. The city beyond the lab was quiet, but the world would never be the same again. David looked back at the lab one last time, shadows flickering behind broken windows. The experiment was over, or perhaps, it was only just beginning. And as the girls whispered to him, "What if there are more?" he knew the truth was far bigger than anything he could imagine. Something ancient, aware, and powerful had awakened, and their story was far from over.